Chapter 4. Ulrich woke, feeling like a new man. The voyage of hell was over. He was alive, well and back on solid ground. More to the point, he was absolutely starving and eagerly went in search of food. There were already lots going on. He noticed several women gathered together. Now that was always a good sign of provisions nearby. Besides, if they didn't have any grub, they knew where to get it. "Excuse me, ladies, is there any chance of some breakfast?" Ulrich realized too late that these were Saxon women, not Angles. "Hungry after your journey, my lord?" "No problem." "Enid, fetch their young lord some food." A buxom woman with a welcoming smile pointed in the direction of a girl at a bench some 10 yards away. The girl faced Ulrich, but her flaxen hair hung down and covered her face as she prepared bread, cheese, and meat for the hungry lad. "Here you go. That should keep you filled for a while," the girl said as she looked up and straight into the boy's bulging eyes. Ulrich was gobsmacked. He had never been one for the fairer sex, happy to practice with his throwing axes in the company of other boys. Girls were still a bit of a mystery to him. This girl, Enid, was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. She was stunning. He just stood there and stared open-mouthed. "Cat got your tongue, my lord?" No thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean much." The expression on her face seemed to say, "What an idiot." Ulrich turned and departed. He knew was not an impressive warrior to look at, spotty, gangly, and not quite grown into his skin yet. Compared to this vision he had just encountered, he was not just plain-looking spotty, but a bumbling troll. But he also knew that valor and courage would win fair ladies' heart. Those traits he had an abundance of, and headed off to find Sebi, a plan brewing in his head. "Bloody hell, Ulrich, I thought you were dead," laughed Sebi as Ulrich approached. "Never mind that now. You remember I saved your life?" No, I forgot." "Of course I don't." "Well, I need you to do me a huge favour." "Ask away, my lord." "On the other side of the camp is a beautiful girl at a bread table. I need you to go and tell her what a great and noble warrior I am." Sebi started laughing. Ulrich punched him in the shoulder. "Don't prat around. I'm serious. Can you do it?" "Lead on, old chap. I can tell you're desperate, and she would have to be as well to you stink a spew." The joker gestured with one hand to lead on, and the other pinched his nose. They stopped at the water trough for Ulrich to freshen up. He put his whole head under the surface, then came up, quickly throwing his shoulder-length hair back and flattening it down with his hands, which made a very rough centre parting. Then flicked the pieces of dried vomit off his tunic and rubbed the stains into the cloth with his damp fingers. "Well, you look slightly more presentable, I suppose. Now lead on." Ulrich led his friend to where the girl was. He stood a safe distance away, peering around the edge of the tent, and watched nervously as Sebi approached Enid. He couldn't hear a word that was said, but just stared on as his companion made huge gestures with his arms. Enid giggled, passed Sebi a plate of food, then she ran off. The messenger headed back to Ulrich with a huge grin on his face. "I want to know every word," barked Ulrich as he grabbed his friend and dragged him behind his hiding place. Okay, calm down. I said, is there any chance of some breakfast, like the one you just gave Lord Ulrich? Or is it only for warriors who have killed two giants in hand-to-hand combat? She said, "Are you talking about that spotty boy who was just here, who smelt like sick?" Did she really say that? No, I'm just adding that for comedy effect. Listen, Sebi, don't mess me about. Tell it as it happened. Okay, I said, a boy he may be, but a boy with a heart of a lion. Unfortunately, he became a lamb in the presence of such a fair maiden. She giggled and smiled, and then I realised, actually, I think she fancies me. Ulrich's face went pale. No, I'm joking, mate. Anyway, she said, tell that Lord Ulrich that I am promised to another, the Lord Egbert, who is twice the man of your scrawny, spotty friend. I said, do not, my lady, judge a book by its cover. The Lord Ulrich is known by another name to the wenches of our village. They call him the Wild Stallion. And think about that, my lady, long and hard. She laughed and ran off. Sebi still had a proud smirk on his face. Oh, by Lord Woden, I save your life, and this is how you repay me. She'll tell every girl in her village. This Lord Egg, whatever his name, will want to find me and come and geld me. It's the way legends are born, trust me, Ulrich. When it comes to the ladies, I'm a genius. The two lads finished their breakfast and headed off to Oswald's tent in order to find out their task for the day. Oswald was sitting with a group of Saxon warriors. Boys, what joy! These kindly lords are to hold a feast and a tournament in our honour as a fine welcome to fellow kinsmen. So lads, practice, practice and practice. You have 2 days to sharpen up your skills. And just as a taster, at noon today, there will be a mass training session in which the youngest warriors of our two peoples will be put through their paces. Ulrich, don't you let me down, boy. What about the other boy, said one of the Saxon lords and pointed to Sebi. He's the joker of the clan. He's not a warrior, but we just can't do without him. He'd more likely fart and scare all of the other boys off. Oh, my lords, I have a parting gift for you, proclaimed Sebi as he summoned up a great belch. The Saxon lords laughed loudly and banged on the table with their fists in approval. Outside, he turned to his friend. Those silly muckers will laugh at anything. Seb, doesn't it upset you that they only see you as a fool? Not at all. It's a great thing to know your path in life. I'm a joker, and people like me for that. You see, you're expected to do well in this bloody tournament, and all I have to do is crack a couple of jokes, play the fool, and I'll be the bee's knees in everybody's eyes. As they walked through the camp, girls chuckled as they passed by the young warriors. Other warriors slapped Ulrich on the back. Ulrich stared at his pal with a look of condemnation. Sebi smiled and replied, I told you, a legend, stroke of pure genius. The youths gathered on the training field. They stood in two lines facing each other, Angle against Saxon. An ox of a lad pushed his way through the line until he was standing in front of Ulrich. He was a good head and shoulders bigger and as wide as Oswald. Let me introduce myself. I am Egbert, son of Wulf. You must be the wild stallion who's been sniffing around the Lady Enid. Ulrich turned to Sebi and whispered, Horseborn. Sebi whispered back, Legend. Ulrich addressed his opponent. Let me explain, Lord Ulrich. There has been some sort of mistake. You can explain it with your sword, my shield, and my fist, declared Egbert to Ulrich, and then said, I was expecting somebody slightly more heroic looking. From what I have seen of you, you must have just got lucky, or as usual, you warriors of Angeln exaggerate beyond belief. The young Angle knew he had no chance against this brute and was thanking the gods that the swords they were using this day were made of wood. That was until the first blow crashed down upon him. He parried with his shield, but the force was immense, sending him staggering back a couple of yards. He made himself as small as possible. He got every part of his body behind the shield. If he could just hold out until the end of the training session, maybe Egbert would be satisfied with humiliating him. Then another almighty blow came from low, caught and lifted the shield high above Ulrich's head. Egbert saw his chance and rammed the pommel of his stone-hard oak practice sword into his opponent's face. Thud, the young Angle hit the ground, disorientated. Still in a daze, he heard Sebi shouting to defend himself. Egbert charged in on him, both hands on the outer rim of his shield, ready to smash it down on Ulrich's head. His foot came up in pure reflex. It caught Egbert plumb in the groin. The huge Saxon boy fell to the ground. Sebi ran to his friend and helped him up. Nice one, old son. The whole field were watching, and you didn't let me down. Blood ran from Ulrich's nose and filled his mouth. He spat a big lump of phlegm and clotted blood onto the muddy ground. He'll want blood for sure now. He's already had your blood. No, I'm serious. I've humiliated him in front of all the other tribes. He has no choice but to challenge me for real. At that moment, Oswald turned up. My Lord Ulrich, you do like getting yourself in trouble. I heard all the rumours of a wild stallion, or was that your work, Sebi? Regardless, what has just happened here is fucking dangerous. We cannot have an Angle having a blood feud with a Saxon, especially as one as high up as this sack of spew you just toppled. I will try to broker a deal. I will not have anything risk our alliance. You two go wait in my tent. Ulrich, what the hell have you done? Explained Sebi. Me? This was your doing, replied Ulrich. You were the one who fancied the bird, asked me to go and say what a great warrior you were. You're right, Seb. Only Lord Woden can help me now. The boy hung his head low, and together with his friend made their way to Oswald's quarters. They had been waiting over an hour and hardly spoke a word. Ulrich's face had started to swell and begin to throb. Then Oswald burst through the door. Listen hard, for it did not go well. Wulf, the father, was furious and wants his son's honour restored. I had a word with him in private and told him how many men you had killed. Then I explained that it might not go his son's way if he challenges you. I also explained that it was not good to have any friction between our peoples. He agreed and we went back into the main hall. Then Lord Wulf stood and announced that after great thought, he was happy to put the incident to rest if Ulrich of Angeln were banished. What? Said Sebi. Whatever your decision, my lord. Ulrich hung his head in shame. It's for the best. We must be a united force against the Britons. Besides, time is a good healer. You may never know. If you're lucky, and the horseborn might forget. Stranger things have happened. Just see it as another adventure, boy. So I suggest you pack and say goodbyes. You ought to be gone by first light. Ulrich was quiet and did not reply. Oswald gently patted him on the back. We had high hopes for you, lad, but one lad is not worth the future of the whole tribe. I understand, my lord. Look after Anna for me, as if she were my own. How can you do this? How can you send him out in the strange lands on his own? His friend protested loudly. I'm not going, I'm not. You're going with him, boy, laughed Oswald, ruffling Sebi's hair as he left the tent. Sebi just sat there open-mouthed. I guess our story will be different of that of our peoples. If this is the will of Lord Odin, or Woden, has in store for us, so may it be, for it is just Orlog. What the muck, said Sebi, resting his head in his hands. This is one of those moments when even a good fart couldn't cheer me up. The two lads left to say their farewells and pack. Sebi had no family as such. He was raised as an orphan by a woman who had many kids. So many, one more wouldn't matter. But in time, the whole clutch had grown to love him. Farewells would be hard. Ulrich spent his last hours in the camp with Anna, who was staying with Rowena. He needed as much knowledge of the Mystic Isle as possible if he and his companion were to survive more than 10 minutes on their own. Rowena gladly told all she knew. She told him to stay to the close. There they would find their own kind. If they choose to follow the river, be careful. Many bandits scour these lands, loyal to no one. If they want to find the Great Henge, they should head northwest. She told him that this place lies beyond the southern forest and across the open plains. She said that all men should gaze upon it and feel its power at least once in their lives. It was a good place to start an adventure for two young tribeless boys. The greatest temple ever built, the sacred place of the Druids, was a destination worth gazing upon. She told of how the Romans had tried to wipe out the Druid creed. Some still survived, and to look for them in the Isle of Apples, for they never turned strangers away. Ulrich asked Rowena to wake him early. That night he slept with Anna, snuggled tightly in his arms. His little sister sobbed. She eventually cried herself to sleep. He dreamt of demons, witches, dark, dangerous woods, and the raven. The boys woke early. Boys were woken early by Oswald. Their horses were already packed with food and gifts from the entire clan. Lord Oswald passed Ulrich a pouch filled with silver and gold coins. Spend them wisely. It's a gift from King Woofer. This is a good thing you do for your people. Live well, die well, and may the Lord Woden always be with you. The warlord then proceeded to slap Ulrich's horse hard on the rump, which sent them both galloping out of camp. Ulrich took one last look back to see his sister waving, and Lord Oswald's arms raised high in the sky. The huge lord then turned, taking Anna by the hand, wiped his eyes with the other hand, and walked away. Well, that's that. Muck knows what's going to happen now, said Sebi. Whatever happens from now on is our own doing. Like stop when we want, eat when we want, do what we want, and most important, go wherever we want. Rowena recommended that we stay to the coast, as that's where most of our people's settlements are. Personally, I would rather avoid people for a while. How about you, Seb? Yeah, sounds good to me. No more pretty girls, just for a while. They left the coast road and headed inland with a new sense of boyish, carefree expectation. Thanks for listening.